Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko.
Welcome to Inside the Firm. I am your host, Alex Gore. I'm here with our co-host, Lance Cayko. And before we talk to him, I want to talk about Revit Rocket Ship. If you haven't taken a look at it, then you are being a bad listener, and you should at least entertain us. Go to revitrocketship.com, check out what it is, and essentially it is your tools to up your Revit skill, up your productions, up the responsibility of how you draw. So hopefully you can increase the reward that you get. Money back guaranteed within the first month. Check it out, revitrocketship.com.
I also want you to go check out Pella Luxury. You've never experienced a brand like this before. The collection of brands within the luxury division of Pella are the conversation starters, the pioneers of industry who provide window and door solutions to discerning architects, the building industry, and beyond. They have decades of experience creating things no one else in the world is creating, and the collection of brands are brought together to complement and build on one another. They don't push beyond the limits. They set them. Explore PellaLuxury.com/the firm today. Very important. PellaLuxury.com/the firm today. Last but certainly not least, with project conditions changing and limited time to get things done, it's good to have information at your fingertips. ARCAT.com provides architects, engineers, spec writers, and contractors with the most comprehensive libraries of building product content and design so you can access it quickly and efficiently. Even better, ARCAT.com is free to use and requires no registration. So visit today and access the information you need now. That's ARCAT.com. Back to you, Al. Presents to the public, Gore.
So we had a neighborhood meeting for a project that was about 75 units in Longmont. And basically there's a bunch of different ways to have neighborhood meetings, meaning there's a bunch of different reasons too.
Yeah, and that was one thing I wanted to make sure that you talked about today was why did this neighborhood meeting happen? Is this typical for everybody listening who might be have never even heard of this concept?
So sometimes if you're doing a project of, let's just say, any certain size, let's say there's a size threshold, you need to have a neighborhood meeting to get neighborhood input on it. The reason why this was, and I don't necessarily agree with this reason, is that there was a concept plan for this to be accepted into the city of Longmont, which for it to be annexed. And that was all annexed, and it's now zoned as residential mixed use, residential mixed neighborhood, I believe it is. And so basically we're following those rules, but since what we're doing is different, they're making us do a new concept plan and getting that approved. Now, the reason I don't agree with that is essentially if it's already annexed in and we're following the zoning, then why do we have to do it again? Again, this is, the city just has their own logic. Their logic is, well, it's different from the previous concept, but it shouldn't matter. Like, it's annexed in, you're following the rules. So what gives?
Basically, yeah. As soon as you get into a project, if you're an architect, builder, developer, whoever's listening, and it involves developing a raw piece of land in a commercial capacity, you're there.
Yep.
You're going to have to probably go through some form of this.
Yep. So we started getting comments, and then there was a theme. So my presentation was actually based around that theme. And what I've learned, the biggest lesson that I've learned is the design really doesn't matter. And as an architect, this kind of crushes your soul because you think that, the design and everything that you do is what's important. And what I mean by the design doesn't matter is that it sort of matters, meaning if it's pretty, it helps, right?
Yeah.
But Lance, listen to this though.
But that's all subjective. Keep going.
The main comments were about the density and traffic. And it basically all led down to traffic. And then density, why they're saying that is because obviously the density leads to traffic. So it honestly, if this was a 3-story just plain building, people would still be just upset as if this was a 3-story beautiful building.
Sure.
Meaning like, hey, it might be nice, but they're still going to have the same complaints. They're going to still want to have it stopped. They're still going to say the same points, regardless of if it's beautiful or not. I was expecting to get hit more too, critique on the beauty of it, and we only got one in an email, which
was post the meeting too.
Yeah, post the meeting.
And that's so interesting. It's so interesting that's what you were worried about. And I think this is part of the point of bringing this up is, if you're largely our audience is designers and architects, so like think you would probably think about that too first and foremost.
Yes.
When in reality,
nope. So some people I feel like almost complimented it or like our attempt, but I just expected
to sure
more criticism. So the presentation I gave then was comparing what we want to do with the surrounding neighborhood in density and in context. So giving them, hey, 50% of this whole lot is not only not building footprint, it's actual green space. It's actual parks or landscape buffers or detention. Like 50% of the lot is physical grass and plants on grass. 55% of its frontage is open for views, where the neighborhood, a lot of them, if you have a 50-foot lot, you might have a 40-foot building and 5 foot on each side, right? Yep. So that's kind of where I came in, and then I talked about the architecture and how the form, even though it's different, it's multifamily, how we took cues from the neighborhood to inform the form. But my computer died there.
Why? Keep going.
Anyways, what they like, I guess essentially, what I'm saying is that everything I did was to kind of go towards that it fits within the context.
Yeah.
And people said it didn't fix in because it was more dense and because it was multifamily. And one point,
as opposed to because it's within single family. That's the point.
And this neighborhood is by downtown. It's not out in suburbia, even though
you could walk to downtown.
Yep,
it's walkable.
And there is golf courses, there is schools, there is things like that. And the point that I might make later is that actually great neighborhoods do have a mix. A variety. Like this is kind of planning 101.
Hey, I keep hearing this phrase, strength through diversity. Just saying.
Yep.
Diversity is our strength. That's what I keep hearing over and over again.
Yep. and while my single family neighborhood doesn't have multifamily, it has parks, it has a library, it has all this other stuff. And you could almost make the argument, here's what's funny. No one makes the argument that those don't fit within the context. Mm-hmm. But multifamily doesn't fit within the context. And then I think it should then be narrowed. Okay, it's not about the context. It's just about the traffic.
Yeah.
Can we just really reduce it to the traffic? And there was some contradictory things I thought in there. Statements like this is a very peaceful neighborhood, but then also there's too much traffic. So it's hard to have too much traffic and also be very peaceful and quiet too. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I just think they don't want more traffic, which
people don't want change.
Yep.
End of story. People don't want change. End of story.
My question to you.
Yeah.
What do you think about the way I laid out the presentations, pros or cons? And then the developer actually responded and I wanted to respond, but I realized that if I wanted to respond, there's other people pent up that wanted to respond. So I let the city go and the developer go. What did you think of theirs?
And everybody obviously knows my lens. My lens is I'm the business partner, which doesn't mean I'm not going to be critical to Al.
Sure.
But, and then also I am pro-development, pro-human, and all of those things. So, it's a little bit different. But if I wish, the most objective thing I could say is, honestly, some of the graphics I thought could have been a little more punchy. And I don't mean pretty. I just mean I was looking at them from the first time. I really was, especially when you talked about when you showed, so the way he started out is, and again, back to his prep was getting all these emails from the public. They were getting forwarded on to Al. So he already kind of was pretty well primed for all of the concerns coming up. And one of them was the density. And so he had these slides up that had, that showed that over 3/4 of the site was essentially open space. 50% of it, like he said, was literally green space. And then the last quarter was only the building footprint. I just thought you could have made it really clear.
I can see that now.
And I was just like, so here's the compliment, Al. I thought he was better at graphics than me. Here's the slam. He's not.
Nice. I can already see.
Apparently.
I think I'm going to slightly reorder and do 3/4, half a quarter, and literally then have the images on one side and the other side have 3/4 is this. Half is this.
That's all it was.
Quarter
That's
is
all it
this.
was. It was literally if you could have just said 3/4 is this. Here's a red. See that red on the site plan? That's all. It was just I knew it because I'm because I understand
used to looking at drawings.
And I know the project, generally speaking, right? So that was the first one. So for anybody's listening, just you should have your business wife or husband, which would have been me, or your actual wife or husband or partner, literally look at it and see.
Oh, I showed you once.
And
this is on you. This is actually your fault.
But I only glanced.
Yeah.
No, I
See?
only glanced.
You shouldn't have just glanced.
I know. But he should have said, Al should have said, I need you to look at this. Can I just do a mock presentation? Gosh,
so it's on me.
Exactly.
Okay, back up.
So that was it. Al did a good job. And like it's always easy to be super critical to the people that are doing the initial presentation, whether it's like a land planner too, and then get ticky-tacky with that. And then remember, like when you go in to give these presentations, it's going to be hard for you to no matter what you do, because there's so much emotion involved. Because what you're dealing with is the general public that feels like you are literally invading their space. And in a sense, you sort of are by adjacency. Like there were some folks at the neighborhood that literally their backyard is this lot. And my wife was watching and she was like, they would say stuff and she'd go, ooh, that's kind of a good point, actually. She's like, imagine if, so the neighborhood I live in, all the houses are in a circle. And then in the middle of our circle, we have this open space that it will never be developed. In theory, knock on wood.
Yep.
It's dedicated open space in Boulder County. Like it's a sacred thing. And I go, dang, it would be like if they put 71 townhomes right in the middle of our open space that we literally can look at the Mannings, our neighbors, straight from my office every day. And I was like, I get the feeling. I get that feeling.
Here's the difference. The difference is when you bought that,
we knew it was open space.
Yep.
We knew it was all going to be open space.
Also, when the people also bought that with undeveloped land that wasn't open space, like you should know that it's not. Right. You know what I mean? Like literally the neighborhood, like that was the selling point.
Yes.
No one told those people that were buying that this was open space.
Yeah.
Totally different. So I get your analogy, but totally different.
And I'm glad. I think that was perfect to clarify it. Yeah, which is one of the points. I'm just trying to say, just give some reaction to it. Okay, so Al went through all of that. He tried his best, and at the end of the day, there were still people that were just not happy with all of this, and they brought up all kinds of information. Again, just to kind of prep everybody for like what kind of other questions could you expect? There were literally some questions that I was just like, that's actually not a bad. Your concern is not bad. It's just I don't know if there's a pipeline for it to be heard and then implemented and all of that. And one of them was like, one guy was like, I'm in charge of the HOA at this other place and blah, blah, blah. And there's all these things. And he's like, what is this HOA going to do? And here's where I'm going with this is that then the developer gave his response. And he was so calm, cool, collected, reassuring, politely educational to everybody about what he does, how they do it, why they do it. One of the best parts that he did, is, so he tried to address as many of the comments as he could in his maybe 15 minute sort of long form talk back to the folks.
Yeah,
about that.
a response. Yeah, his response.
And one of them was, like, for instance, was to the guy who brought up the HOA. And so if other people are listening and you might even be an architect and just bring this up to the developer, but the developer was like, here's the email if you guys want to email us at any time.
Yep.
And so he facilitated a pipeline. And I'm like, I hope people do email him. Great. And he even said, like, yeah, we're happy to take your opinions on all of these things. Reassured them with all the traffic concerns that, like, we're going to have to put in speed bumps. We're going to do by law what they say. Like, we can't break the law. And specifically with the HOA, these are good ideas. Why not implement them? Why not make it so if you buy a property here that we're developing, a single, basically a townhome, you can't park on the street. No problem. You'll get a fine, whatever. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up in that regard specifically. But that was phenomenal. So there was sort of this bookend, is the way I would describe it, is like Al kind of presented all of this information, tried his best to preemptively address some of their concerns.
Yep.
And then the bookend was the developer, and that's truly the way to do this, because this is important. The last development, the big development, the biggest project F9 would have ever done, died this last year. We got it last spring. And I think one of the reasons why it died is there wasn't the bookend. I'm just kind of coming to this conclusion right now in real time on air.
Yeah.
Because there was somebody like Al. In this case, it was a land planner. She did a phenomenal job. And then she had like an assistant and everything. Their presentation was stellar. It was so good. It tried to preemptively eliminate or address all these problems. But guess who didn't finish the bookend? The developer.
Yeah.
He just hid behind the people he hired. And people in the community for this development that Al is bringing up and had to present, one guy even called me on Labor Day. I told Al about this. I go, hey, I just got a call. I just had a 13-minute call with a guy from the general public. I don't know why I answered my phone, but I did. And he was like, he just was very adamant about, who are these people developing this? He's like, I could look up you guys. He's like, he was actually even reassured by us, because he's like, you guys are literally Longmont's only firm, pretty much. You have stellar ratings online. Seems like you guys do great work. I like that they hired somebody local. Who's the dang developer? Like, we don't know what they've done, and that's the difference between the approaches to these public meetings, Al.
So that's interesting, because we are trying to do the best we can with this development. But to the neighbors' concerns, who have concerns that need to be addressed, and they can only be addressed so far. I mean, we live in reality, but who's going to reassure them? We could try, but the developer who's actually going to implement this needs to hear this, which they did, needs to start to address them and move in the major concerns that are happening. So it's not going to be perfect. It can't be perfect. You can't please everyone. You just can't. But like you said, hey, the guy in charge in this case needs to be like, hey, I heard you, and we're going to start to make steps in that direction.
You know what? Think about it this from now your own business perspective and your own business lens. I hadn't even thought about this either. What if part of your interview process with a new developer that maybe you've never worked with before is asking them that very pointed question about, hey, I want to know, will you be at the public hearing meeting bookending our conversation with the public? And if they aren't, I'm here to tell you, in my world, I think that's partly the reason why it died. Because especially up in that area where this development, this is separate from Longmont, just to clarify everybody, this is separate from Longmont. It's literally like an hour away where this other development was. Is the politics even over out in that area even more vastly different? It's a much more conservative area. And speaking as somebody who leans right, like, you feel even maybe more invaded. And so to not be able to see behind the curtain of Oz about who's actually developing it, probably set people on their heels even more than that. So maybe if you are entertaining a new developer, that's one of the questions you want to have teed up for them and make a decision based on that, because it could end up in a ton of work that you planned staff around and built your office around dying.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
Cool. Other than that, it was pretty funny to watch the whole thing. It was just because you just get these wacky comments and things you're not expecting.
Sure.
Okay, there's a buzzword that's been floating around that I wanted to bring up to everybody, and I think that F9 has been quiet quitters before it was even cool. And this was published, an article published about 8 days ago, but it's been all over social media. Like if you just went to Twitter and typed in quiet quitting or quitters, you would see all kinds of. It's probably even trending, right?
Yeah.
So I don't even know if Al knows about this.
I thought it was something different than what it was.
Perfect. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
So from the article, this is from techtarget.com. And it's titled "Quiet Quitting Explained Everything You Need to Know." Quiet quitting is the latest workplace buzzword. Although it sounds like a reference to someone resigning from their position, it describes a rebellion against the hustle culture of going above and beyond what a job requires. The COVID-19 pandemic not only disrupted everyone's lives with restrictions and a lockdown of public gatherings, it also made some people rethink their career choices. During what's known as the Great Resignation, 71.6 million people left their jobs from April 21 to 2022, blah, 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 blah. So what is quiet quitting? Quiet quitting doesn't mean an employee has left their job, but rather has limited their tasks to those strictly within their job description to avoid working long hours. They want to do the bare minimum to get the job done and set clear boundaries to improve work-life balance. Al, looks like you want to jump in here.
This is why I was confused. I thought it was what you've heard in some big school districts is that a teacher will literally not do their job whatsoever. But they're protected, let's say, by the union, so they just get shuffled into some big building and they don't do anything. So like literally you are not doing your job. Thus you're quietly quitting doing your job. I think this should be a different term. It's not.
It's a bad term.
It's
Don't you agree?
Setting boundaries. The only thing that's kind of different is there's you can set the boundaries, right? Meaning like, hey, I'm going to work from here. I'm going to do my duties, blah, 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 and I'm going to do them to the best of my abilities during that. This says is they want to do the bare minimum to get the job done. Mm-hmm. Like that's okay. So maybe you are quietly quitting because like the bare minimum, and here's why the problem with the bare minimum is because you can't, if you described everything that you needed to do for expectations, all of a sudden you would just be micromanaging someone, right? So you have to give them a baseline that then, like here's your baseline, and normal employers won't give a top set. They'll let you go to your heart's desire, right. And that's what they're doing is giving a top set. Yeah. But that's where, like, okay, there's a baseline and a top set, and you're setting your top set to a reasonable thing. That to me doesn't necessarily mean you should only do the bare minimum, but that's just coming from, honestly, not just from an employer, but from an employee in getting work. Like, do you want to be the person not laid off? Do you want to be the person that gets the promotion? Like, maybe you don't, and that's fine.
Yeah. So the reason why the title of this episode now is "We Were Quiet Quitters Before It Was Cool," is and so. But later on, I'll kind of explain my thoughts behind that title. But later on, the article goes, "How can businesses help employees? The best way to prevent disengagement is to improve the employee experience, talk to employees, gather their feedback, and discuss what can be done to make them feel appreciated. It may be as simple as regular words of encouragement. Next, make sure the workloads are realistic and that there are appropriate boundaries." Al, like you said, to maintain a work-life balance, it is important to check in with employees and make sure these boundaries are clear. Help employees manage stress and be sure to put mental health as a top priority. Businesses should encourage employees to look after their well-being through digital wellness awareness or regular check-ins that aren't as formal. Businesses need to set work boundaries and respect those boundaries to create a positive work culture. Talk to employees about career paths and find ways to help them reach their ultimate goals with clear, actionable tasks. There will be no change in quiet quitting if companies don't help employees feel valued and learn how to manage realistic expectations. So basically, Then there's the opposite of this, which is interesting.
I didn't even know this was a thing.
Quiet firing. Just like quiet quitting, quiet firing that has been going on for years and addresses the other sides of an employer-employee relationship. Quiet firing refers to managers making a job miserable or treating an employee badly. This way, the person quits instead of being fired. Examples of how an employer may treat an employee during quiet firing include no raises, small raises, limited time off, increase in workload but no increase in pay, demand for employee to work after hours, reduced hours, micromanaging, not involving or leaving the employee out of the loop, failure to meet with the employee, lack of respect, and low pay. So some of the ways I think we've done this successfully at our firm is to basically facilitate the boundaries. That's the biggest part. Like I'm not sure it's about quiet quitting. It's we do a strict 40-hour week. The only people that should be working more than 40 hours a week should be me or Alex. And that's if we are, and the only reason we should be doing that, or that might be doing that, is if we have managed our time poorly, but we should try to strive for 40 hours or less. We allow folks to do work from home Wednesdays. They're a little bit more flexible. We stress, we did an episode a couple months back about burnout, how to handle that with folks at the firm.
Yeah.
And then client communication. So watching and making sure that clients aren't emailing, texting, calling employees before hours, after hours, interrupting all of their work like that. Just not their work, but their lives. That's why I think we have done some of those things already. So very important for you, right? Especially if these buzzwords just keep coming up. If you have employees, you're one of your biggest resources that you need to take care of. So be aware of all that.
Awesome. I think we should bring people down for ARE Jeopardy.
Let's do it.
Everyone ready?
Yep.
Question numero uno. What chapter in the IBC would you look at to determine what fire protection system you need? Okay, IBC, what chapter? Is it chapter 9? A, chapter 9. B, chapter 4. C, chapter 11. Or D, chapter 13. And I could read those off, but I forgot to bring off. Afterwards, I forgot to bring down the IBC. I want to see if the architects know that. A, chapter 9. Wow. What? I think I didn't put chapter 7 because it has something to do with it, but it's about the actual like systems like itself. Yep. Question 2. What chapter in the IRC would you look at to determine the fire sprinkler system requirements? These come with chapter names. Is it A, chapter 29, water supply and distribution? B, chapter 27, general plumbing requirements? C, chapter 3, building planning? Or D, chapter 2, administration and enforcement? Mark, can you...
Is it Michelle? Are you guys having a meeting? Yeah. We'll be done in 5 minutes. Is that okay? Okay. You're welcome to just hang out or make yourself home upstairs. I was just here cleaning the camera off. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll be done in just a second. Okay, go ahead, Al.
Okay, what do we have? Okay. A, C. It is chapter 29, which is A, water supply and distribution. Why they do not have something different than that? I'm serious. I looked into it. Chapter 29, water supply and distribution. And even in chapter 3, it says if you have a fire sprinkler system according to chapter 29. So it's referencing that. Yep.
Okay, on to me?
Yep.
Great. My questions are awesome. When does water contract? A, when it freezes. B, when it's hot. C, when it's lukewarm. D, when it comes into contact with oil. Reeves, you're giving that look.
Don't give the look. You know the answer. Freezes, hot, lukewarm oil. 4, 3, 2.
Okay, what do we got? A, C. The correct answer is B, when it's hot.
Why would you choose lukewarm instead of hot?
Yep, when it's hot, it contracts. Right? Ice expands.
Oh.
That's how I
But
read that. Oh.
yeah, but if it gets too hot, then it boils, which then turns to gas. But I guess he said water, not gas. Know your states. Still, ARE question.
Licensure depends on it. Number 4, when plywood is used in wood construction to create diaphragms, special attention is paid to what? A, thickness of plywood. B, grade of plywood. C, nailing patterns. D, type of plywood. Gretch. I figured you would have just been like, boom, done. Answer. When plywood is used in wood construction to create diaphragms, special attention is paid to what? Thickness of plywood, grade of plywood, nailing patterns, type of plywood. What'd you do? D, A, Gresh, what do you got? C, Gresh is correct. Gresh is a licensed
C.
architect, nailing patterns.
What do you have? How many nailing patterns?
What?
How many?
Total?
Yeah.
I think 1 or 2.
Jason knows he has 2. Jason is the winner.
And if we could pick something up north so we're close to the construction guys, that would be awesome. Okay. Just something up here on this side of town, please.
Okay,
I'm
think
sorry.
about it.
I'm sorry to be a dictator, but yeah.
And take us out.
Okay, if you'd like this episode, you know what to do. Leave us a positive comment, subscribe, share with your mom. We'll see you next week.